planned this day. I had not read the readings for today, but they seem appropriate. Me and my brother talk almost daily, and one of the things that we talk about is how there's so much sickness in the world and everybody has something going on. But what's so strange about it is people will turn to every other source other than God. Our prophetic reading talks about going through trial and tribulation. And it says, I'll go through the fire, but I won't be burned. And I'm reminded of an actual account. It took place back in 1975, if I'm not mistaken, where there was this massive plane crash in the Cayman Islands. And there was this one individual. This actually made the front page of Time magazine. But there was this individual who was there. And when the plane crashed and fire was all around him, he started calling out God's holy name, because he had His word rooted inside of him. And the fires did not even scorch his clothing. And then we go to our psalm, and that same theme seems to run. Beauty from the ashes, but we have to go through the ashes. And then also into our apostolic reading. And then in our gospel, Jesus is preparing for His time of ashes, for His time of troubles, for His time of suffering. And of course we know what come out of that, the resurrection and the redemption of all of us. But here's the question I pose to you today. Do you believe what this word says? Do you believe that you can pass through the fires and not be burned? Do you believe that you can be redeemed? Do you believe that your bodies can be healed? I believe it because I've experienced it. I don't have to read it in some book. I don't have to go and study a bunch of materials. I went to Dr. Cinder. I'd had chest pains one night, and I thought I was having a heart attack. And Nikki took me to the hospital, and they put me up in the heart tower, and they were treating me for a heart attack. And as they did all these tests, they found out I didn't have heart problems. And so finally, they ran the scope down my throat, and they found these spots in my esophagus. And they did a biopsy of them, and they found esophageal cancer. They sent me home from the hospital, and I had not got the diagnosis yet. I had to go and follow up with Dr. Craig Cinder over at Asheville Gastro. And Dr. Cinder told me, he says, we found these spots in your esophagus, and we've done the biopsies, and they're coming back positive for cancer. And I said, okay. And where a lot of people would have been, oh my God, oh no, not the big C word, not that. I had a peace that came over me. And he says, before we talk about any kind of treatment, before we start talking about chemo and radiation or any kind of surgeries that would be horrible, he says, I want to go and check again and see the extent of it and go back and redo it. And I said, good, I have a chance to go to my church and have them pray. So he scheduled a follow-up appointment. And when I went back for that follow-up appointment, he said, we're going to run the scope back down through you again. And he says, do you have any questions for me? And I said, no. And he says, I have a question for you. He says, would you mind if I prayed and asked God to guide my hands and to give me knowledge and to give me the insight that I need to cure you? And I said, I'm a believer as well. Pray for me as also. And so he did. He took my hands and he sat there and he prayed for me for, I know, 15 minutes before we ever went and did the procedure. At the end of the procedure, I left and I went home. And then a few weeks later, I had to go back for the follow-up appointment to that. And when he came in, the first thing he says is, God has worked a miracle. He says, the cancer is gone. These spots are still there. They're called Barrett spots. They're places where acid reflux has eaten away your esophagus, but the cancer cells are gone. And we had a time of praise and worship right there in his office. And the last thing he told me was, you have a testimony to give. And so I ask you, do you believe God can do that? Have you seen God work in your life? Have you seen him take an active part? If you haven't, you've missed something. Don't look for the supernatural in the spectacular. Don't miss the supernatural by looking for the spectacular. The charismaniacs have it all wrong, I'm telling you. There ain't no woo and everybody flipping around and doing all this crazy stuff. That's hogwash. God works in a very real way. He does it in right and he does it orderly.
Quiet.
Don't miss it. Don't look for some big fanfare. Just believe that he is there. God has created all of nature. God works within nature. He has put things here for us. Do you believe that? Do you believe that when the lepers came to him that he could touch and heal them? Do you believe that when the lame came to him that he could raise them up and make them walk? But more importantly, do you believe that he can do it for you? I believe he can do it for me because he has. And I believe that he can do it for you. Think about that.